Welcome back to another board game video, everybody. Today we aren't doing a tier list, we're doing more of a overview of the War of the Ring board. So, sorry if the camera is a little bit cut off. I have the collector's edition, so the board is very big. This is like the only situation where you don't want a massive board for this game. And I guess I thought that, so I think this is going to be my last video about War of the Ring that I make, at least for a long time. But I figured it might be interesting to do some overarching information instead of the specifics that we did for all the other videos. So let's start with, so I'm sure that there's other people that have done videos like this, and some of them might be a lot more of an expert than I am, or have played competitively in this game or whatever. But I'll share what I've learned in my time playing. So I think it'll be fun. So the ring starts out in Rivendell. You need to get it to Mordor so that you can get on the track. And once you're on the track, that's how you win the game, essentially. So let's talk about the ways to do that. So we could move the Fellowship on this track. They could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think there's variations of how you can get there, but essentially, if you go through Moria, you can get to Mordor in 10. I think you can also do it this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You could do that, but I think that's about where your options end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I think if you are to go into any free people regions, aka settlements, you lose some efficiency, but you could heal some corruption. So this is a place where you could declare every single turn and heal some corruption. This is a place, this is a place. I believe you can do it in just settlements. It doesn't just have to be strongholds, but a bit fuzzy on the rules, doesn't come up too much for me. It's bad to go through Moria, though, because number one, the Balrog has some ways that you can draw extra tiles, and if you go through a Sauron stronghold, you might have to draw an extra, or you might have to draw an extra tile if you get revealed, essentially. So that's probably the quickest way to get there, but it's a little bit dangerous. You could also go the safest way, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Essentially, all you need to be able to do is declare in Mordor at the beginning of the round in order to enter the Mordor track. But you don't literally need to make it to Gorgoroth. You just need to make it there. So that's the safer way to go. It feels a lot slower to me, but it's actually not that horribly slow. This is not a good option. I don't know why you would do that. You can also go at sea, theoretically, which is really cool. So you could go this way and then this way, which I think would theoretically be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you would go 7 to at sea, and then theoretically 8, 9, 10, 11, I believe. But you get some safety with the at sea card. But you can only do that if you get lucky enough to draw that card. You could also go around this way, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That feels a little bit better to me. That seems like a better path than going this way. I mean, I guess you have this struggle right here, whatever, but at least you have some places over here that can help you. And then I guess you could go that way, but let's see what that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's 14. So I probably wouldn't recommend that one. Let's see if there's anything over here you could do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's actually not horrible. Is that accurate? Is that accurate? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's actually not horrible. Going from the north instead of the whatever direction this is, upside down. It's a little bit confusing. So there's a few different options where you can move the ring. And I think it will slightly depend on how much corruption you have, how much risk you're willing to take, all that sort of stuff. But there's some really interesting options, which I think are really cool. I think if you can ever go at sea and do it efficiently, so you would never want to do that if you already made it here and then backtracked at sea, I think that's probably the wrong decision. But if you could ever do it, I think you pretty much want to. It's a very, very safe path. And you can heal some corruption along the way, which is great. Yeah, so big fan of that. So now let's talk about, so I guess we're on the free people. Let's just, so that's their main win condition. As far as corrupting the ring, there's not really much to talk about with the board, other than that you really should get the Balrog of Moria to punish them if they try to go through Moria. Yeah, so that is big, but as far as the military victory for the Shadow, which is their primary way to win, let's talk about some of the places they can take. So, one of the fundamental things about this game is that the Shadow player needs 10 victory points to win, and the free people needs 4 victory points, which you would get from taking over the enemy strongholds or cities. The strongholds would give you 2, the cities would give you 1. So, let's go into it. So the basics are that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 victory points you can get from Gondor, and 1, 2, 3 that you can get from Rohan. So if you add those up, that is 8 of your 10 that you would need. And to be fair, actually, so let's just start with that as the basic information. So let's just say that you take these, which is generally somewhat doable, depending on how your opponent's playing. So now you would need to take you would need to take 2 1s, which would be Dale, the Shire. I think those are your only options. So you would have to take Dale and the Shire, which maybe isn't the easiest situation. Or you would have to take a stronghold, which could be Erebor, the Woodland Realm, Lorien, Rivendell, or the Grey Havens. So, those are your basic options. So let's talk about this first. Let's back up just a little bit. So, probably the first turn of the game, you probably want to get Isengard at war, get Saruman, so that you have an extra die in the future. That's great. There's other things you want to do as well. But that's your most basic one. So once you do that, this becomes, you probably want to get the Dunlendings as well. Maybe get Ugluk in here. And once you do all that stuff, this becomes just like a crazy war machine. So because they are so scary, and you might even be able to corrupt Theoden, Rohan should fall so easily. Rohan might be able to defend, but your opponent will really need to focus on it, and there's really just not that much they can do. So you should be able to take Helm's Deep, and you should be able to take Edoras. But it's important that you don't leave these 2 vulnerable. This one obviously would naturally get taken. But if you leave the Fold right here, they might be able to recruit a lot in Rohan eventually, and then either take some stuff back, or come and support Minas Tirith. So if you were going to take something over, you might as well take it over completely. That's a good principle of this game. Another principle of this game is that whatever you do, you don't want to leave yourself open. You don't want to get flanked in this game, because that could be really rough. So let's talk about what that might look like. So let's say that this is what happened. We took all of these troops in Isengard, and we move them all to Helm's Deep, and then we take over Edoras, and we take over the Fold, okay? Let's just say we did all that stuff. But then now there's no troops over here, And let's say that the Balrog came into play here, and then Moria, the troops in Moria went and attacked Lorien. The problem here is that there are no defenses in all of this area, and very light defenses here. So that would open the free people player, assuming that their people are at war, or at least some of them are at war. The elves could try to take Moria. And they honestly would have a decently good chance if they were at war and had been able to recruit at all. So that would be one area that there could be a problem. The other area is if any of these people decided that they wanted to go this way. This is an easy victory. Angmar is easy victory points. Mount Gundabad is not necessarily easy. There are some big recruitment cards over here. But let's just say that these guys got crazy and they decided to march an army down to Orthanc, maybe supported by the Ents, and try to take Orthanc. There's some really big stuff you could theoretically do there. So generally what you want to do is, and I've learned this from experience, is you want to clear out one section before you go to the next section. So I know that the bottom of the map is cut off down here a little bit. We have just some basic zones right here. I think you can see Pelargir. Then we have Umbar, which is a stronghold, so 2 victory points. Nir Harad, which is a settlement, and then a city, Far Harad. And then this place, it doesn't ever matter really. So, let's say that you took all the Southron Easterlings from down here. I guess those would be the Southrons. And you took Pelargir. So now you have Pelargir. You need to take a section of the battlefield. So you want to have, I think now that I've messed this up a few times, I think you always want to leave about 5 troops in each of these. But you would want to have Osgiliath taken over. So now you would have Osgiliath, and then you would have Pelargir. So then it's important at that point to start spreading out a little bit. So I would put 1 unit here, and then the rest of your army here, and then at some point you get Dol Amroth under siege, and you get Minas Tirith under siege. But honestly, if it was me, at this point, I think I've learned enough to know that I would leave 1 unit in Osgiliath to try to prevent my opponent from being able to sneak around me and take either of these locations. Because Osgiliath is kind of just like a central place. It's a pivotal point between Mordor and Gondor, and between Rohan and Gondor. Because if the Shadow is theoretically under control of Minas Tirith, meaning that there's an army under siege there, and they're in control of Osgiliath and Pelargir, man, it's so hard for the free people to mount a big defense. And honestly, it might even be a good idea for the Shadow to put a character here as well, so that any shenanigans over here is significantly slowed down. Because if the Rohan, let's just say that the Shadow had largely taken Gondor, or at least had it under siege, if Rohan hasn't been dealt with, and you don't control these spots, this Rohan army, if there was a big Rohan army here, they could come here and then attack this army under siege, or that was sieging, or besieging somebody, sorry. Or they could go here and then try to enter Mordor. So you really need to cover your bases here, because it doesn't take much for the free people to be able to jump beyond you and then do something. Yep, so I would just say that that's really important. The other thing that would be really important is if you try to leave some units in all of your strongholds. I would honestly even say, I don't always do this, but unless it's like Umbar, and you know it's going to be really hard if you have a good line here for them to ever get to Far Harad or Umbar, I would try to leave about like 3 troops in every stronghold, because 3 troops is a formidable group, and if you somehow know that they're going for Umbar, you can just recruit a little bit more there. And then if they have 4 troops in a siege, that's pretty solid. So I would say it's a good rule for the Shadow player to always try to leave about 3 troops in every stronghold. That's not 100% a rule. If you've already taken, if you're looking really good over here, you don't need to worry about at least Minas Morgul, but you probably don't need to worry about Morannon either. And you can just start dumping your troops and trying to attack. But you also want to do things really efficiently. So Orthanc should try to take over Rohan. Mordor and the Southrons should essentially try to take over Gondor. You can team up and help a little bit. But one other thing that I've learned and that I think is really interesting is I used to always take the units that were here and move them down. And I actually think that that might be wrong. When you use the Voice of Saruman, you can recruit in each of these. And then also you have the Dunlendings, and they get some figures here. But the stacking limit on the Dunlendings is 3. So if you get 3 in South Dunland, you can just move those ones in the army here down to Orthanc, and then just upgrade these people. So that you're looking really good. This is a formidable army. And then you just leave this unit, or this army here, with the idea that eventually you will team up with Moria, and you can do 2 things. You can either move both of these armies into here and then come for Rivendell, or you could choose to go for the Shire, the Grey Havens, which honestly the Grey Havens looks like they're far away, but it's really only 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's not that well defended. And honestly, if you can take the Shire here, which the Shire should be no problem for you at all, it's almost certain that if you take the troops that are in these sections and you move them to Dale, you will be able to take Dale. They almost can't defend that. Especially because the first round you need 6s, but then after that you only need 5s or 6s, just like the Free People. So your odds go significantly up. So honestly, I think at this point, if I was to make a pitch, my pitch would be that at the beginning of the game, you go for these 8. This would be step 1. Taking position in Gondor would be step 2, getting them into siege. And then once you have taken all of Rohan and you have these in the siege, you complete them. And then once you have your 8 victory points, you mount offensives and try to move troops to take both the Shire and Dale. That would be my pitch. What would the vulnerabilities be from that? Number 1, you should be able to take the Shire. That seems so easy. Dale, they might be able to put some defenses into Dale. But again, if they empty Erebor and put everybody in Dale, you just go for Erebor, right? That's super easy. So I would suggest you take these forces, go up to the Iron Hills, and then you can attack either of these that you want to. Whichever one is less defended, you go for. And it's not like you're opening up any vulnerabilities here. Dol Guldur is still very defended. There should be no vulnerabilities over here if you've maintained 5 in each of these and then have just had a hard or a strong offensive here. And then I guess Orthanc could theoretically be in danger if you haven't done anything. But if you've taken out all of this section, your only place you should be in real danger are these 3. And Moria might even be literally empty. But if they take the time, if they empty Lorien and decide to go for Moria, you should keep at least 1 troop there. That should be the bare minimum. But let's just say that you empty Moria, and then they use the troops in Lorien to go for Moria. Well, you just have the troops in Dol Guldur, and then you can go for Lorien if you want to. It doesn't take you very long to get here. Or if you wanted to play even safer, if you have a big Isengard unit here, you leave people in Dol Guldur, you go a little bit slower route, and then you go for Lorien. Also, they could attack it with Rivendell, but if they go for Rivendell, you can pivot a little bit here, and you can maybe... Actually, I literally don't even think it's wasting actions. So you could move the troops here, and then essentially there's so much that you can do from the South Downs. You can either go for Rivendell, which is 2 moves away. You can go for the Shire. I I guess you limit your options for going for the Grey Havens because it's kind of far away. But at least it gives you more options. So that's probably the actual move you would want to do. Move these troops here, then you move these troops here. Then you have 2 paths to attack. Unless Rivendell's already built up pretty high, then you should just keep going this way so that you're closer to these 2. But I feel like that's pretty solid. The other thing that's great about committing to these and then waiting to the later game to decide what you want to go for to get your last 2 victory points. Obviously, when I say wait, you do want to be moving in that direction so that you're not starting over trying to recruit a ton of people. But as the game goes on, you're going to get some cards, some strategy event cards that will let you decide, that will essentially say you can recruit a ton of people here, or you can recruit a ton of people here. And I know that there's a few more. Maybe you can recruit a ton of people in Dol Guldur. And if suddenly you have 10 units here, just use these people and go for something. Leave Moria defended with the Balrog and his 3 or 5 units, whatever he has. Put some people in Orthanc so you're nice and safe there and shore this up. And then leave this one vulnerable, but just use this massive army to go for something. But that's the great thing, is that later in the game, you can wait until you have a really good card and then use it, and your opponent won't know what's coming until you use it. Then suddenly you have 10 units over here, or 15 units, whatever it is. Cool. So that's the suggested shadow strategy. The other options, let's say that you play with all of the expansions other than Erebor, or like the Fate of Erebor one, and you just know that Minas Tirith you're never going to take. They awoke Denethor, they have Boromir there, and they just managed to get Gondor to war, build up some defenses on Osgiliath, and you just know that this is very difficult. So let's pretend that let's just, for the sake of argument, say that you can take Pelargir, because that's easy. So you have 1 victory point. You decide not to mess with either of these because you don't want to take all of the troops from down here and move them to Dol Amroth, because then Minas Tirith could just march in and take 3 points and then just take Angmar pretty easily. And you don't want that. So you decide to leave these troops pretty much where they are, or at least you put them here maybe, and then leave some back. So you have your 1 victory point here, and then let's just say that this goes poorly. So you take Helm's Deep, but you don't have enough strength to be able to defend Helm's Deep and to take Edoras. So you get 3 victory points, or this could also be that you just don't do anything here and then you get these. But 3 victory points is a somewhat easy, that's a low bar to set for what you could do here. Let's just say you only get 3. Where do you get the rest of your points? I don't like trying to go for this area. This just feels so far away. And it's only 3 points. So you could take this, but in order to take this, you would have to move a bunch of troops from over here, and then you could do it, but it would take a while for you to take the Shire and the Grey Havens. And if you don't take Ered Luin or Bree, maybe they're going to just take some of this stuff back eventually. So it's just so much movement to do stuff somewhat inefficiently. And if you open yourself up, let's say you take all these troops and bring them into the fray as well, you open yourself up in Mount Gundabad from Carrick, and essentially this is called the Dew Line. That's what the kids are calling it these days. Dale, Erebor, Woodland Realm. You open yourself up for an offensive from this side, which is not good. So I just really don't like going for this, especially because even if you got it, you would only have 6 points. Then you have to take either 2 Elven strongholds, which could be Rivendell and Lorien, or you have to take Erebor and the Woodland Realm, because you only have 6, so Dale's not going to cut it for you. Man, so yeah, that seems hard. So I wouldn't suggest going for this. This feels very inefficient. And also with Galadriel and Elrond, you can actually make Rivendell and Lorien pretty formidable. And if you don't time them perfectly, you can take one, but then they'll recruit super hard in the other two. So there's a whole lot of problems there. So let's say that you get the 3 there, and then we'll talk about the rest of the stuff. What if you tried to go for the Dew Line? It's pretty freaking hard to take, in my opinion. Iron Hills is going to fall super easily. Dale can fall super easily. And then, honestly, this is a pretty good spot to be in. Let's just say you still have a few units here because you don't want to just give the Iron Hills back. This is pretty sweet because you can decide to go for either of these. But the problem is you don't have any leaders naturally in these, which you could easily get Nazgul here, and I think that there might be one character you could recruit to support for some leadership here. But you don't have a ton of units, so if you run out, you have like nobody to reinforce. So I think it would actually be really easy to take the Iron Hills and Dale, but then taking either of these would be a little bit difficult because you've probably put the dwarves to war by coming in here, fighting here, taking their stuff, depending on how quickly that went. And then if they just use one muster, they're already at war, so then they can start recruiting some elites here, which they have blood to spare, by the way. And there's also a bunch of leaders here, so they can be awakened and then make your life a little bit more difficult. And the leaders here in the first place are just good for the free people, because if you don't corrupt them, they just have natural leadership, so they'll make it harder to take this stuff. So let's just talk about how you would take this if you could. Let's just say you didn't get lucky and get like the one card that makes it super easy to recruit. So you've taken this and you've taken this, and then you would really have to use Dol Guldur to come this way. But I don't think you can use both Dol Guldur and Moria to come this way. Number one, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get here, so it's not very efficient. And if you open yourself up on both of these, Lorien just has to go here, and then they literally block you from getting to Moria, and then this could just split, and half of this army could take Moria, and then half of it could take Dol Guldur. I'm giving an example of what could happen theoretically. Or you could go here and then end up taking Dol Guldur and then going Moria this way. So I just feel like the problem here is that you open yourself up to a lot. You could just come with these armies, but I honestly don't think that Dol Guldur and the Southrons or the Easterlings are enough to take the Dew Line. That's my perception. And even if you did take these 5, you would still only have 3-ish from here. So you would need to take either Lorien, Rivendell, the Grey Havens, or something else over here. So it feels difficult. Yep, so I would just stick to trying to take this. But if you, at least trying to get 5, go for these, or I guess this would be 6. Go for these, and then if you just can't take Minas Tirith for whatever reason, lean into whatever seems natural. Go for the Shire and the Grey Havens, or and if you do that, just go for Dale. If you can't do that for whatever reason, because these have been so depleted, you probably got to go for one of these Elven strongholds, and then Erebor would probably be my pitch. But so that's what the Shadow wants to do. I know I'm rambling for a long time here. The Free People, I don't think that the Free People ever attack. I think that the free, or without a great opportunity arising. If Mordor is undefended and you have an army that can, like you have the card that lets you jump 2 and then you can jump here immediately, going for Mordor is a great way to win the game. That's what happened to me somewhat recently. So I was a scrub. Now I've learned my 5 people in Mordor rule, or 5 people in each of those rule. But I just really don't think there's like anywhere that's actually vulnerable enough to mount an offensive. Like the beginning of the game, Moria was, or like in the base game, Moria was pretty vulnerable from the beginning. The Balrog's not here, etc. Now that you can get the Balrog so easily, if Lorien ever comes here, the next turn the Shadow player is just going to recruit the Balrog here. Now you have tons of leadership and hit point there. Good luck taking that, Lorien. And also you've opened yourself up to being attacked. So this one isn't easy to take anymore. These are still easy to take. But the problem is if you take either of these two, they can immediately recruit a version of the, I believe it's the Mouth of Saruman, or Mouth of Sauron. So you don't want to just take Angmar and be like, yeah, I have 1 victory point, because the Shadow will get so much bigger immediately. But if you were to have the opportune moment come about, and you somehow took something for 2, so you took Dol Guldur, you took Moria, you took Orthanc, good for you, or you took one. Let's just talk about these first. Let's just say you took one of the outliers, but you're not in Mordor. Because if you're in Mordor, you probably just want to keep going with Mordor, trying to take things. If you do that, the best way is probably to go for Mount Gundabad, because it's the least defended. The other thing, taking, let's say you had taken Moria and then you went for Angmar. Far Harad is down here, and that's worth 1, but that is so hard to get to. You could theoretically do it, but if you've been destroyed at all over here, you're just not going to have any troops to get over there. So, so I think your best bet is just focus on the ring, and then if the Shadow player messes up, you capitalize on their mistake, but you don't plan for war, if that makes any sense. You can defend your keep, essentially, but if you spend all your actions trying to muster and get your people ready for war, I think you're just going to hurt yourself in the long run. You need to try to win the game and stop the Shadow player from winning, but you don't need to try to focus on every different means of winning. So, then I guess the last thing I want to talk about is if you use the Erebor, or Fate of Erebor expansion, this becomes Sauron's stronghold, Erebor. And then I believe that this is worth 1 victory point for the free people. Something different happens with Dale, I can't remember exactly what. I believe South Rune is worth 1 victory point, and then Ered Luin is worth 1 victory point. This just completely changes the game for the Shadow. I think it is so much easier at that point. This is something that the free people could take, let it be known. But if they muster all of these people and then get them all to war, and then they take Erebor back, good for you. And then honestly, if you can do that, it's huge, because you might actually be able to take the victory point at South Rune, and then you might actually be able to take Angmar. So that is an actual foreseeable way for the Shadow to be able to win, or for the free people to be able to win with victory. But the problem is it takes so much for you to actually be able to do that, and the Shadow player now has a base of operations here where they can reinforce, so they can take this army, go up here, take the Iron Hills, and then move their people to Dale. So now they have 2 really, I don't think this is worth any victory points, but now they have essentially this whole entire flank that is recruitable as well. And now all they have to do is take the Woodland Realm, which I think is very unlikely the Woodland Realm would hold to all these troops. So now they have 3 pretty easy points. They still have access to all of these 8. But then again, you could just not push into Edoras, take your 2 here, and then go for these 5. And maybe just put a unit here so that it's harder for Rohan to be able to get to the battle. Although there's a card that lets him get to the battle, so. So, and even if you take this 1 point here, which again would be super easy for you to take. Sorry, in the Iron Hills, not in Dale. You could easily take the Shire afterwards. There's just too many options for the free people. So I actually don't play with the Fate of Erebor. It's not that it's bad. I did for a while and I did enjoy it. But now with the Rulers ones, I'm trying to use them because I think the 2 leaders for these you don't play with either of them. So appreciate the variability for now. But thank you for watching, everybody. I think that's all I'm going to go into for now. This is a great game. So complex. I make errors when I play this game. But that doesn't stop me from enjoying it. So